So we're talking about feelings. So
Yes.
what is the problem when we don't allow ourselves to have feelings?
So, I mean, I think feelings are just there. We have them whether we want to acknowledge that they're there or not in response to an event or in an experience. And I think the problem is we've been messaged, we've been taught things like we're bad or defective for having them, or that we're not allowed to show them because it may not be safe to show them. Sometimes those messages are very heavily gendered, like boys don't cry.
Mhm.
And other times the messages are just kind of more neutral, but they may reflect a reality like growing up in an alcoholic or a dysfunctional home where feelings are seen as weak, feelings are seen as the thing that lets the cat out of the bag. So I think for many of us very early on, we can learn how to, and these are very layperson's terms here, stuff our feelings. But
Mhm.
the thing with feelings, and perhaps the more kind of deep-seated construct of emotions, is that they will come out in one way or another. And the
Mhm.
way that they come out for a lot of people are sometimes physical illnesses, physical responses, and very commonly depression and anxiety.
Right.
And that's why I thought it'd be interesting to talk about this idea of feelings phobia as it relates to this summit.
I love that. So what do you think, like, so we'll dive a little deeper into right at how it relates specifically to anxiety and depression in a minute, but to start, like, what are some common blocks to
Yeah.
feeling our feelings?
So there's probably my six or seven biggest ones because there's a lot. And every year I work as a therapist or work with people, I learn and discover more that individuals have experienced, and it clicks like, wow, so that's the block you have to feeling your emotions. But I think by and large, if we have to look at the one big issue under which there's all these sub issues of block, is just what we've learned about feelings and emotions to start with, and
Mhm.
then what we've learned about the properness or the impropriety of expressing them or having them in any way. So a very common block that I see people have, especially in trauma therapy and really throughout mental health, is this idea that I cannot show my emotions. But then that can have a lot of different variants as well, such as it's not safe to show my emotions. I'm defective for feeling so much, because a lot of individuals who do identify as very emotional, highly sensitive, have been chided for being so sensitive. I mean, so many people I work with in my practice have been told things like, you're so sensitive. And that, even though it may seem like a harmless comment that parents and guardians and teachers and others can give to try to toughen up somebody for a cruel world, if that message is received even once, but then especially over time, it can really internalize as there's something wrong with me for
Mhm.
having these feelings and emotional responses that I have. So I think that's a big one, that I cannot show my emotions, is number one. I'm defective for even feeling the way I do, or I'm defective for feeling this way, maybe another. And then for a lot of folks, especially who have survived any kind of abuse or dysfunction or just toxicity in the home, a lot of the messaging relates to it's not safe
Mhm.
to show my emotions, because maybe at one point you did try to speak up about how you feel and it was very, very much shut down.
Right.
So those are three very big areas. I already mentioned that another block for many folks exists around gender,
Mhm.
particularly the way that a lot of men can be socialized, which is that boys don't cry, or you're weak if you cry. And it's interesting because the other side of that has often been looked at, well, it's more socially acceptable for women or those who identify as females to show emotion. But
Mhm.
as one of my colleagues said in response to that, yes, and yet if we show too much emotion, then we're labeled as crazy or hysterical.
Mhm.
And then I think a lot of the messaging we get is this sense of discomfort we see from others when we may show our emotions or where we may cry. And that can lead to this internal messaging around I make others, I'm too much for others, or I'm making them upset. Because I mean, I think we've all seen that scene in the movies, but for many people, it's probably a scene from your real life where kids can get told things like, don't cry, you'll make your mother upset, or don't cry, you'll make your grandfather upset. And so we often take on that responsibility for not allowing other people to emotionally respond.
Mhm.
So, I mean, those are probably some of the biggest ones that I deal with. But I think another area of this we have to talk about when we're discussing blocks is many folks that I've worked with truly believe if I go there with allowing myself to have a deep emotional experience, I may not be able to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid it's going to engulf me. There's this fear of the unknown that can happen with it. And I think that's especially what people who are susceptible to anxiety may experience is this, I don't know if I'm going to come out intact on the other side. And I recently did an article piece about this, which one of my friends let me quote her. And she said, I've gone with the lesser of two evils, which is just staying parked in the depressive position for most of my life. Because I don't know what's going to happen if I let myself fully feel.
Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.